In the mid-19th century, this was an obscure mountain village. A few decades later, it was the seat of a government that ruled 1/4 of the world's population. The story of Shimla's rise to imperial power is linked with an engineering triumph, the construction of the Kalka-Shimla railway. Shimla had already been declared the summer capital of India in 1864, greatly facilitated by the opening of the Grand Hindustan and Tibet Road in 1856. Even with this development, the summer pilgrimage to Shimla was no picnic.
From Kalka to Shimla, very often it was the men invariably came on horseback. It was nothing more than a pony track initially. And the women were carried up in dandis, which were like litters carried by 2 men in front and 2 at the back. So it was not exactly a very comfortable way of traveling. And it would take up to 3 days between Kalka coming up to Shimla just to come up to the town. And often enough, a family would spend about 2 to 3 weeks just traveling up to Shimla, and then another 2 to 3 weeks going back to Calcutta.
Though a demand for a rail link was mooted in 1884, it was only in 1898 that a historic document was instilled, a contract between the Secretary of State and the Delhi Ambala Kalka Railway Company to construct and operate a line from Kalka to Shimla.
India got the railways, the first railways came in 1855, and we started building the mountain railways towards the end of that century. In that regard, we have some of the oldest mountain railways in the country, and some of them are very unique. They are all on different gauges, like Kalka Shimla is on 2 foot 6 inch gauge.
The first impression I had of rail systems in India was that India really wouldn't work without trains.
On November 9th, 1903, the 59-mile route was in place. Overnight, an expedition from the plains to Shimla became a journey of a few hours.
It's sort of like it almost became the lifeline for the town. After, suddenly there was no need to come being dragged up the hill and lurching and these tired, beaten men carrying you up.
On leaving Kalka station, 2,100 feet high above mean sea level, the rail line enters the foothills and passes through 20 picturesque cottage-style stations where the driver is handed a token that guarantees him sole possession of the next section of the line. While constructing the Kalka-Shimla railway, the first difficulty was to find a way around a huge landslide on the 7th mile of the cart road. The only alternative was to burrow through the hill. A tunnel nearly half a mile long, known as the Koti Tunnel, was built. With its picturesque loops and elegant grades, the railway is a train lover's fantasy.
It's been magical, actually. It's so different. Every turn of the train, every tunnel we've come through, you see a different view, a different aspect of the countryside, different people. It's super.
Kalka-Shimla railway is an extraordinary feat of engineering skill. Throughout the route, the curves are so sharp that the train moves within a radius of 37 degrees. Where the gradient is steep, in order to achieve a gradual ascent, the line develops into 3 picturesque loops at Taksal, Gumman and Dharampur. Kalka-Shimla line, more than any other cause, contributed to the speedy development of Shimla as a center of power for the British Empire.
श्यामला माँ को आज से 200 साल पहले एक बंगाली तांत्रिक था जिसका नाम कृष्णानंद ब्रह्मचारी। बंगाल से पैदल आके श्यामला माँ को लेके और मंगल चंडी माँ को लेके यहाँ तपस्या करते थे, ध्यान करता था। तो अंग्रेजों ने जब आया कलकत्ता से, बोला हम यहाँ अपना सर्किट हाउस बनाएंगे। तो तांत्रिक ने मंगल चंडी या श्यामला माँ को लेके यहाँ तपस्या करते थे। तो उनको जब बोला यहाँ एक गॉड गुड कुछ नहीं है, यहाँ से सब हटाओ, हमने यहाँ भवन बनाना है। तो श्यामला माँ को लेके, मंगलचंडी को लेके जाकू पहाड़ के पीछे फेंक दिया था। फिर श्यामला माँ को फेंकने के बाद उसी वक्त, उसी दिन ही रात को जितने स्टाफ लेके बरेलाट वाइसराय ने आया था, सब बीमार हो गया। और आंख बंद कर रहे हैं तो देख रहे हैं श्यामला माँ और वो तांत्रिक त्रिशूल लेके खड़े हैं। दूसरे दिन, उसी दिन रात को सब अफसरों को बुलाया, सब बंगालियों को भी बुलाया। तो बोला ऐसे से बात है भाई, यहाँ कुछ नहीं बनाएंगे, और जगह सिलेक्ट करो। तो बोले क्यों? ना तुम्हारे यहाँ गॉड है। उसके बाद आस्ते आस्ते उन्होंने यहाँ मंदिर बना दिया और श्यामला माँ का नाम से शिमला हुआ है।
Captain Charles Pratt Kennedy. He settled in Sabatu, then he moved up to Shimla, and he is regarded to have built the first permanent house of the station in the early 1820s. From that date on, the town slowly starts rising in importance. And an interesting thing comes here is that the land was given free of cost by the local chiefs. The land which today holds Shimla was owned partly by the Rana of Kyonthal and the Maharaja of Patiala. And almost all the land had been given free of cost, and there were only two stipulations by the local chiefs: no trees be cut and no cattle slaughtered.
Praising the rail link between Kalka and Shimla, the Delhi Gazette wrote that the cooler climes may help Shimla to become the permanent seat of government, as the temperatures would invigorate the Europeans, which would be beneficial to both the rulers and the ruled. Between Dakshai and Solan, the railway pierces the Barog tunnel. At 3,752 feet, it is the longest tunnel on the line and was built at a cost of 8.4 lakh rupees.
मिस्टर एच ब्लॉक एक इंजीनियर थे और उन्होंने एक लॉन्गेस्ट टनल बनाने के लिए सोची थी, जो ब्लॉक से लेकर कुमारहट्टी तक अबाउट 3 and 4 किलोमीटर्स के आसपास होती। लेकिन हुआ क्या कि दोनों तरफ से उन्होंने खुदाई की, दोनों एंड से, इधर ब्लॉक से उधर कुमारहट्टी से, बीच में वो मिला नहीं, मिलना चाहिए वो बीच में मिला नहीं, और उन्होंने क्या किया, सुसाइड कर ली। और सुसाइड करने के बाद लोकल बंदा एक मिस्टर भलकू है, उसने इस टनल की खुदाई की।
A chap called Bhalku, whom they say that when the engineers, with all their theodolites and their dumpy levels and what have you, when they couldn't figure out the trace of the line, they said that this common laborer with his long matted locks would march ahead with a tall staff and just close his eyes and keep walking along the hill. And they say that the trace the railway line has taken is exactly what this man revealed to them. Now Bhalku claimed that the trace of this railway line had been revealed to him by the Devta of his village, who communicated to him through the lice in his head. And he used to feed the lice with sugar and flour, which he used to pour on his hair to feed the lice.
Barog Hill is one of the prettiest stations on the Shimla line, with a long tradition of hospitality and food.
You get the works: porridge, cornflakes, bacon, eggs, toast, coffee, tea, whatever. Because most of us used to, the style we used to just basically drink tea. But you got everything there. And it's the same with dinner. You could order a European dinner, which would be roast meat and some boiled vegetables and a couple of alus and stuff like that. Or you could have the Indian curry and rice and things.
I remember having breakfast. So I had a fried egg or egg sandwich or something like that, a cup of tea. And having a cup of tea and a sandwich. And then we stopped and the train moved off again, fairly silently. And I remember that I could smell the air. I could smell the grass. I could smell the flowers. I could see the birds. I could see the sky. And I was thinking, I'm free. I actually felt that although I was in this mechanical contraption, I felt I'm part of nature.
And one tradition of the Barog tunnel may have been lost to modern science.
The Barog tunnel, which is the longest tunnel on the thing, and we are talking about the time of the steam locomotives when none of the compartments had lighting as such, was regarded as the tunnel to be necking in.
The first steam locomotives on the Kalka-Shimla railway were actually a modified version of the engines in use on the Darjeeling Himalayan Railway, built by Sharp Stewart and Company of Glasgow. In 1904, a modified version with 2/6 2T wheel arrangement was introduced, which proved to be the ultimate design. In 1934, the lines saw the ultimate in rail luxury, the single-carriage diesel-electric car, known as the rail motor car. Due to a severe shortage of petrol, diesel traction was introduced in 1956, reducing the travel time from Kalka to Shimla dramatically.
ये बहुत अच्छा जर्नी है, इसमें इसलिए अच्छा लग रहा है क्योंकि सीनरियाँ अच्छी देखने को है और फ्रेश हवा चल रही है.
The train made the whole experience salubrious. It made almost a spiritual experience where you could sit, look, listen. This train line is one of the few, for example, the rail car, as it's going along, even though it's clattering, you can hear birds singing. You can almost reach out and touch. If there are wildflowers there, you can pick flowers. You can talk to the people. You can stand up. You can look around. You can do all the things that you can't do in a car. What it did most was liberate the traveler and make the traveler part of the landscape, but at the same time liberate him or her so that they would feel that they could look around and they could have total accessibility to the route.
The Kalka-Shimla railway is a prime example of the art of building tunnels. In 3 years, 107 tunnels were built, of which 102 still remain in use, adding to the magic of the journey. During the summer, invalids and officials taking a break to the rich and idle all traveled up by train. Shimla was seen as a place for the high and mighty, full of pomp and circumstance, the truly imperial city.
It was formally declared as the summer capital of India. This is the Viceroyalty of John Lawrence. And Lawrence himself had served for a long time while at Shimla and had been based here. And he was not exactly in the best of health, and at that time the Secretary of State, Sir Charles Wood, had given him free, like, settle wherever you'd like to, and he chose Shimla. From that date on, now you find is 1/5, for all practical purposes, even Shimla even then, was just a little village in a hill. 1/5 of the human race was ruled from this little village. Its powers, its jurisdiction extended from Aden in the west to Burma in the east, up to Afghanistan, and down to what is now Sri Lanka.
A heady cocktail of glamour and power enticed the young and old alike to Shimla. One such group were the grass widows, unattached ladies whose husbands were sweltering it out on the plains. They were described as lively, attractive, and with a talent for mild but respectable flirting.
Of course, the younger unmarried women who were coming up were part of the fishing fleet which sailed out of England every year, who were coming to India in search of husbands. So there you had, normally chaperoned, so you had this large fishing fleet coming up to Shimla looking for husbands and whatever. But in terms of scandal, it never really affected them.
They generally had a good time collecting and enticing away all the eligible bachelors, much to the chagrin of seasoned spinsters and speculating mamas. Here, in climes more suited to their clothes, the homesick Memsahibs of the empire recreated the social and architectural landscapes of their native island. The British built their homes to reflect the status of the rulers of the empire's jewel in the crown, faithfully recreating their version of stately Tudor homes.
It was almost like as if they were trying to build not even England, but almost like a fantasy England.
Amongst local people, it sort of became a cross between a Mount Olympus and an English enclave.
These summer homes were scarcely the cottages that second homes in the countryside often are. Here were fanciful constructions with turrets and gables, tower rooms and steeples, and ornately fretworked planks and panels.
The finest building activity in the town took place in the last quarter of the 19th century, and you could say the first decade of the 20th century. That included, of course, the Shimla-Kalka railway line, which is at that point of time was regarded as a phenomenal engineering feat. Though at that time, I believe the idea had been mooted as far back as 1860 to create a railway line which would connect Shimla to the rest of the country by rail track.
An interesting feature of the Kalka-Shimla railway is almost a complete absence of girder bridges. Multi-arch galleries, like ancient Roman aqueducts, being the commonest means of carrying the line over the ravines between the hill spurs. There are over 800 such bridges along the rail route.
ये कनू ब्रिज है, ये बड़ा हिस्टोरिकल ब्रिज है, तो इसे आर्च ब्रिज कहते हैं इसको. तो ये ब्रिटिश गवर्नमेंट के टाइम का ही बना हुआ है.
Several problems were encountered during the construction of the Kalka-Shimla line. At Tara Devi, it was found necessary to construct a tunnel through the mountain. The hill people declared that the goddess Tara, whose shrine was located at the summit, would never allow this. The workers were greatly excited when halfway through, it was reported that a huge snake, several hundred feet long, had been uncovered in the tunnel. This, however, turned out to be an iron pipe running along the tunnel, conveying fresh air.
Tara Devi station, which used to be called Aapka Naam Baapka Naam, because they used to have this form there, and the moment you entered the town, you had to fill out this form. Your father's name, your father's name, where have you come from, where will you go? So the CID, as they say, would take this form. So that is why this place got named Aapka Naam Baapka Naam. And there was this plague inspection post there to keep any illnesses and sicknesses and other horrible pestilences from coming up to Shimla. And everybody who traveled in any other class except first class would have to have all their luggage fumigated, and including being hosed down themselves before they could enter Shimla.
The first sight as one approaches Shimla from Tara Devi is that of the Viceregal Lodge, a symbol of imperial might. The lodge, a rambling Scottish baronial building, was designed by Henry Irwin and was first occupied in 1883.
ये बिल्डिंग लॉर्ड डफरिन के टाइम बनी थी, 1884 से 1888 के बीच. उनका ये ऑफिशियल रेजिडेंस था, क्योंकि शिमला समर कैपिटल होती थी. 6 महीने मार्च से अक्टूबर तक पूरे देश का शासन बेसिकली यहीं से चलाते थे. हेनरी इरविन इस बिल्डिंग के चीफ आर्किटेक्ट थे. तो 1947 तक वाइसरीगल लॉज कहते थे, और इसमें 13 वाइसरॉय रह चुके हैं, डफरिन से लेकर माउंटबेटन तक.
The Viceregal residence has been variously described as a tale of amateur architecture and a Scotch hydro. The Civil and Military Gazette described it as a state building set amid a panorama of beauty which takes the breath away and is in keeping with the importance of the occupant.
बहुत बड़ा महत्व है हमारे इतिहास के अंदर. और फिर दूसरा, बिल्डिंग का स्ट्रक्चर वाइज ऐसी बिल्डिंग्स हमें बहुत कम मिलेंगी देखने में भी, और इसका सारा स्वरूप आप देखिए, इन्होंने एक एक चीज़ को बड़ा देखभाल करके उनका आर्किटेक्चर वगैरह इस हिसाब से बहुत महत्व है.
When I looked for what had been the old Viceregal Lodge, in the days of my childhood, it was a very isolated building in a large area of what looked like forest. There was an open space around it. And so I was surprised to find, after coming from the Cecil, that it was just amongst other buildings.
When you go into the interior, as you walk in from the main door, you see this vast Haveli-like inner structure that you see. And you've got the 3 levels and corridors all around. The woodwork, the feeling of the Haveli, like a Rajasthani thing, except it's covered. That's a very Indian innovation that was put in.
Created by Maples and Company of London, the wooden interiors are still a marvel of teak, walnut and deodar, as befits chambers that played host to a panoply of Indian princes.
One Egyptian carpet, they say, it is the biggest in Asia, which had been put there one piece.
This was the first government building in India to have a full electric network and its own power generation.
ब्रिटिश आर्किटेक्चर का आप देख लीजिए, इन्होंने जहाँ पे सब चीज़ों को ध्यान में रखते हुए उस समय से इन्होंने यहाँ पे एक गर्म पानी का, इनका हर कमरों के अंदर, हर बाथरूम के अंदर गर्म पानी, ठंडा पानी, और एज वेल एज खाने जहाँ तक ले जाने तक लिफ्ट सिस्टम वगैरह पुराने उसी टाइम से यहाँ पे वो है.
Each year, hundreds of guests were invited to partake of the hospitality provided by the Viceroy and his lady, and to cater to their every need was a large domestic staff.
उस टाइम 800 स्टाफ था, including 40 gardeners.
Describing this period, Kipling recited, "Men say who summer in the plains below, that Shimla people frivol. Be it so. Let us admit that, as the plains assert, the maidens of the mountains sometimes flirt. However, not all that happened in Shimla was frivolous."
The Shimla conference held in 1945, which was perhaps the last chance for India to have remained united.
June 25th, 1945. At Shimla, in the mountains of northern India, a conference is convened. The British are ready to grant independence. Gandhi has won his fight. Released from prison under a general amnesty, he goes to Shimla. Other leaders join him there. Pandit Nehru, destined to become India's first prime minister, and the powerful Muslim leader, Muhammad Ali Jinnah. He wants India partitioned. Pakistan for the Muslims, the rest of India for the Hindus. But Gandhi cannot agree to a division of his beloved India. It is a stalemate that will have a terrible effect upon the nation.
And of course, there's this, which is now a perception felt, that Lord Wavell had been hampered very heavily in his designs by Churchill. And had Wavell had a freer hand, perhaps the partition of India would have never happened.
An infamous guest held in the dungeons of the Viceregal Lodge was Nathuram Godse, Gandhi's assassin, who was imprisoned here during his trial at Peterhof in Shimla. Though Shimla's historical significance is fading, it continues to be one of the most popular hill stations in India, attracting some 350,000 tourists a year. Most of them travel up on this charming railway line, which winds its way through a continuous series of reverse curves along the valleys and spurs and flanking mountains, the steepest gradients being 3 in 100 over the 60 miles that it takes from Kalka to Shimla. Finally, arriving at the Shimla railway station, located at a height of 6,800 feet above sea level.
एक तो शिमला स्टेशन वैसे ही वर्ल्ड के जो उनसे मैप पे है उसी पे आता है। पैसेंजर को हमारा जो सारा स्टाफ है यहाँ पे बहुत ही टीम वर्क से काम करते हैं। जो बाहर से टूरिस्ट आता है उसकी जो हमारी रेलवे के संबंधित जो ज़रूरतें हैं उनको हमने पूरा करना होता है।
We have to see mainly the safety aspects and brake power, because it is a very steep gradient and we can't compromise with any safety factor.
In 1909, the railway line was extended from Shimla up to the old bullock cart office. The extension of half a mile served as an important loading point for goods traffic, especially during the long winter months. The British made tremendous investment in building their summer capital.
Those days used to be a beautiful hill station, less of people, more of greenery, and that skyscrapers, big buildings were absent. There used to be cottages, and to look at them was really used to be a pleasure.
In most British hill stations in India, a main thoroughfare was a focal point, which was always centered around a ridge. The settlements sat on either side. In Shimla, the midsection of the ridge developed into a powerful social institution, the mall, which became the very heart of the social resort.
Mall Road, which is all metal now you see, it used to be kacha. And in the evenings, before, say, 4 o'clock, it used to be sprinkled with water, so that by evening when people come for just roam about, stroll on the Mall Road, no dust would trouble them.
Mall Road में सिर्फ Mall Road से केले होते हैं, Mall Road और कुछ नहीं सब बाजार, तो वहाँ कोई काला आदमी कोई जाने नहीं देता, सिर्फ अंग्रेज चलते थे काला आदमी जरा नीचे लोअर बाजार है नीचे, वहाँ चलते थे, ये ऊपर नहीं आता.
It looks like Europe something.
It's
really
like
nice.
a Western kind. It's not like an Indian place. It's something really special.
The Mall Road, as it is called today, continues to be a hub of all social activity, with Scandal Point as its center. A place for the town's citizens to meet and discuss the day's happenings.
As the tale goes, that the Maharaja of Patiala was sort of having an affair with the Commander-in-Chief's daughter.
The daughter fell in love with the Maharaja. And Maharaja, of course, it didn't matter to him. He had a couple of hundred other wives also and girlfriends. But whenever, this particular rendezvous, they were caught. So the Maharaja was banned. And this is the Maharaja of Patiala.
Even now, it's a place where people still gather to gossip and maul each other up. So it was always that, which is why they call it Scandal Point. This is where you discuss the town scandal.
In the heydays of British rule, officers in uniforms, mem sahabs in beautiful gowns, strolled down the mall to Christchurch. It was a social as well as religious duty to attend midday service on Monday. Even today, the reserved pews for the Viceroy, his lady, and the Commander-in-Chief remain testimony to times gone by. The British elite adored Shimla for its fashion and its entertainment.
Shimla was a great place to be in. You were a nobody if you didn't go to Shimla in summer.
Theatre, as a fashionable pastime, found a home at the Gaiety Theatre.
This building was made specially for the Amateur Dramatic Club and made as a 5-story structure. The town hall was in this, all the other services were here, and the 2 lower stories were for the Amateur Dramatic Club. And they've continued in that since then.
The Amateur Dramatic Club was arguably the best equipped amateur club in the world. It often mounted lavish productions, with vast amounts spent on sets, costumes and wigs, and of course on bar expenses, a must for any actor. Communication was of vital importance to the European rulers, who relied on the dark to ensure their missives were translated into action.
There are 2 main characteristics of GPOs all over the country. They are invariably located in very prime location. Whether it is the Bombay GPO, whether it's the Calcutta GPO, Madras, Pune, Nagpur, the Golda Khana and Delhi. Now, that is the first characteristic. The second characteristic is that they always have very arresting architectural features. The reason for the prime location and for the distinctive architecture was that in the days of the British, this was a symbol of imperial authority. There's a lot of romance in the air when you're talking about how mail was conveyed between Kalka and Shimla prior to the advent of this little railway. Mail used to come by Tonga It also used to come sometimes by elephant. It used to be conveyed generally by bullock cart. And then, of course, till today, it is being conveyed in this train. Till a few years ago, we had also the rail car that was conveying mail from Kalka to Shimla.
Today, much of Shimla has changed, yet some buildings still retain a sense of history. The Cecil Hotel, recently renovated, continues an age-old tradition by offering the finest hospitality.
It's a most beautiful hotel.
It really is beautiful.
We were very, very impressed with it. And it was, I must say, it was very nice to stay in. It was then just a two-story, rather rambling building. It was very exciting being on the hillsides and being able to look out over the valleys. Well, that was something quite new. And I can still remember, again, the smell of the chia pine. And even to this day, I used to go also take my morning tea out to sit under the pines to eat that and look out over the view.
Though the sun set on the British Empire and the season did officially come to an end, Shimla still retains its title as the Queen of the Hills for its history, its natural beauty, and its picturesque railway. It has been said that there is no instance in world history where a railway running to a center has not brought about an increase in its wealth, prosperity, and population. Certainly, since the inception of the Kalka-Shimla Railway, Shimla has benefited greatly.
The train is the unsung hero of this country.
Not just a means of getting from one place to another, it's a way of life.
A way of life which has remained unchanged for 100 years.